Imagine Hong Kong
Oh, yeah.
at a standstill.
Yeah.
Not by a typhoon,
Right.
but a cyber attack.
Oh, wow.
Hackers,
Right.
taking down the power grid, disrupting hospitals,
Yeah.
causing citywide chaos.
Yeah.
That's the scenario that the government's trying to prevent
Right.
with a brand new cybersecurity law
Uh-huh.
aimed at protecting critical infrastructure.
Yeah, it's a very real concern, in our digitally dependent world. And the reason we're diving deep today,
Yeah.
this new Protection of Critical Infrastructure Computer Systems bill
Okay.
was just gazetted
Oh.
on December 12th, 2024.
Okay.
And we're taking a look at the bill itself, along with reports about the lead up to this legislation.
Just to be clear,
Yeah.
we are not offering legal advice.
Right.
If you need specific guidance on how this law might affect you,
Uh-huh.
definitely reach out to your legal or compliance team.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
We're here to break down the key elements and highlight what stands out.
Okay.
For example, this trend towards CI cybersecurity isn't unique to Hong Kong.
Right.
We're seeing similar legislation in mainland China, Macau, Australia,
Yeah.
the EU, Singapore, the UK, US, even Canada is working on something similar.
So a global wave of recognizing how crucial these digital systems are,
Right.
but what exactly falls under critical infrastructure in Hong Kong's context?
It's a broad range.
Okay.
We're talking energy, transportation, healthcare, banking, IT, communications,
Right.
even major venues like stadiums are included,
Oh.
anything where disruption would have major consequences.
Okay.
And the focus is specifically on the computer systems
Right.
that make these infrastructures run.
Okay.
This isn't about physical security.
Yeah.
It's about the software, networks, and data
Uh-huh.
that form their digital backbone.
So if I'm a small business owner,
Right.
just a resident, I'm not directly impacted.
Correct. The primary target
Yeah.
is organizations operating these critical infrastructures.
Okay.
They'll be designated CI operators
Mm-hmm.
and will have a whole new set of obligations.
Okay.
Now, while small businesses and the general public aren't directly named,
Right.
you might feel the ripple effects.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Increased cybersecurity costs for companies
Right.
could be passed on to consumers.
Yeah.
Or service disruptions from a major incident would affect us all.
Interesting point that those indirect impacts are easy to overlook.
Yeah,
But let's get back to those CI operators you mentioned.
sure.
What are these major obligations they'll be facing?
The bill outlines a range of responsibilities,
Well-
but they fall into three main categories.
Okay.
Organizational, preventative, and incident reporting.
Okay, let's unpack that,
Sure.
starting with organizational.
Right.
Does that mean just having a cybersecurity team?
It goes further than that.
Okay.
CI operators will need a dedicated cybersecurity team
Right.
and maintain an office in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong. Okay.
No more overseas headquarters calling the shots for critical infrastructure here.
That's a significant detail.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the government wanting control and oversight
Right.
within their jurisdiction.
Precisely.
Okay, cool.
Now, when we talk about preventive measures, we're talking about proactive cybersecurity.
Okay.
This means conducting risk assessments,
Right.
security audits,
Uh-huh.
having emergency response plans in place,
Okay.
all to identify and mitigate risks
Yeah.
before an attack happens.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But how would an organization know which specific actions to take?
Yeah,
It seems like a huge task
right.
to figure that out on your own.
That's where the codes of practice come in,
Okay.
while the law sets the baseline.
Right.
These codes offer more specific guidelines for
Yeah.
implementation. And the fascinating part is they'll be based on internationally recognized standards,
Interesting.
not just Hong Kong's own ideas.
So a move towards aligning with global best practices in cybersecurity,
Right.
which could make implementation smoother
Yeah.
for organizations. What about the last category,
Sure.
incident reporting?
Right.
That one sounds pretty intense.
It is.
Oh.
CI operators will face strict timelines for reporting cybersecurity incidents to a new commissioner's office.
Okay.
And get this, a serious incident has to be recorded within 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
incredibly fast.
Yeah.
It suggests they're really worried about how quickly a cyber attack can escalate.
Uh-huh.
What kind of incidents would fall under that serious category?
That's a good question.
Right.
And the details are going to be important.
Yeah.
But the overall goal is clear. Speed is key
Mm.
to containing cyber attacks.
Right.
The faster authorities are notified, the faster they can investigate,
Right.
coordinate responses, and hopefully minimize the damage.
Yeah.
And to make sure everyone's prepared.
Okay.
The law even mandates participation in security drills,
Right.
like a fire drill,
Oh.
but for cyber attacks.
So a whole new level of seriousness and proactive preparation is being introduced. We've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
What are some of the key dates listeners should be aware of?
The law itself was just gazetted on December 12th, 2024.
Okay.
And House committee considerations were speedily finalized
Right.
the following day on December 13th.
Gotcha.
However, all eyes are now on the upcoming Bills Committee considerations scheduled for January 7th, 2025.
Okay.
This will be a critical step in shaping the final form of the legislation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. This whole commissioner's office you mentioned before definitely sounds like a powerful new entity being created.
Yeah.
What exactly is it, and who's going to be in charge?
This new office will sit under the Security Bureau.
Okay.
And it'll be headed by the commissioner, who will be appointed directly by the chief executive.
Okay.
You could think of them as the cybersecurity czar.
Oh, wow.
With a pretty broad mandate to protect Hong Kong's critical infrastructure.
The cybersecurity czar, that's quite the image.
Yeah.
What kind of powers are we actually talking about here?
They have the authority to designate who qualifies as a CI operator,
Okay.
issue those codes of practice we talked about,
Right.
monitor cyber threats, investigate incidents,
Mm-hmm.
and even coordinate with other agencies like the police.
So real teeth,
Right.
not just advisory.
Yeah.
And there's even a provision for them to issue written instructions to CI operators.
That's right. If the commissioner identifies a security loophole that needs immediate attention,
Right.
they can directly order an organization to take specific actions to fix it.
Wow.
It's a strong mechanism for ensuring compliance.
I can see how that level of authority might cause concern for some organizations. What if they disagree with a designation or an instruction given by the commissioner?
The law seems to anticipate that kind of pushback.
Okay.
There's going to be an independent appeal board where organizations can challenge those decisions.
So there are checks and balances in place.
Exactly.
It's not just the commissioner calling all the shots.
This appeal board provides an important avenue for review and should help ensure fairness and reasonable application of the law.
That's reassuring.
Yeah.
But what about sectors that already have their own regulators, like banking or telecoms?
Right.
Do those existing structures just get pushed aside?
Not at all. The law actually envisions those existing regulators becoming designated authorities for their specific sectors, working in collaboration with the commissioner's office.
So more of a collaborative approach than a complete overhaul.
That's the idea.
Okay.
They can provide valuable insights to the commissioner.
Gotcha.
However,
even
with these designated authorities, the commissioner's office will be the central hub for all incident reporting.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be more efficient for each sector to handle its own reporting?
Think about the interconnectedness of critical infrastructure.
Right.
A cyber attack on a bank could have knock-on effects for the power grid or communications networks.
Right.
The commissioner needs that central view to understand the full scope of any threat and be able to coordinate a comprehensive response.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Everything is linked.
Yeah.
So you need a central point of oversight. And this brings up another interesting point.
Okay.
Third-party service providers.
Right.
Many organizations rely on external companies for their IT needs, right?
Absolutely. Cloud services, software vendors, managed security providers. It's a complex ecosystem these days.
So where do they fit into this whole picture with the new law?
That's a tricky one and a point that's causing a lot of discussion.
Okay.
The law acknowledges that CI operators will use third-party services,
right,
but also makes it very clear that the CI operator is ultimately responsible for meeting all the requirements, even if they've outsourced parts of their IT.
So if if their cloud provider has a security breach,
yeah,
the CI operator is still held accountable.
that's how it reads.
Wow.
This is going to raise some serious questions about contracts, liability, and how organizations manage these third-party relationships going forward.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out in practice.
Speaking of potential complications,
Yeah.
there must have been some concerns raised during the development of this law, right?
You're absolutely right.
Especially given the possibility of government overreach into sensitive areas.
One major concern was whether this new law could be used to access personal data or commercially sensitive information.
Right.
After all, the government will have a lot of visibility into these critical systems.
I can understand that worry.
Yeah.
So how has the government addressed that concern?
They've repeatedly stated that accessing that kind of data is not the intention of this law.
Okay.
The focus is solely on the security of the systems themselves, not the specific data they contain.
It's a reassurance,
Yeah.
but I'm sure people will be watching closely to see how that plays out in reality. What other topics were raised during the development of the law?
Transparency and consultation were big themes.
Okay.
The reports we've seen suggest that the government has taken a collaborative approach, working with industry stakeholders to shape the codes of practice and the implementation guidelines.
Yeah.
That's definitely a positive sign.
It sounds like they're trying to strike a balance between ensuring security and avoiding disruption to how businesses currently operate.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
So what's the overall takeaway? What does this new law really mean for Hong Kong?
This is a huge shift in how Hong Kong approaches cybersecurity.
Right.
It's a recognition that in our interconnected world, cybersecurity is not just an IT issue, it's a national security issue.
Right.
It's about ensuring the resilience of the entire city, not just individual companies.
It's that domino effect you mentioned earlier.
It's like
one weak point can bring down the whole system.
And remember, this is just the beginning.
Right.
The law was just gazetted, and the Bills Committee consideration is coming up in January.
Right.
There's still a lot to be decided and a lot of ground to cover.
This has been a fantastic overview of this complex new legislation.
Yeah.
So what should people be doing now to prepare?
If you work for an organization that might be designated as a CI operator, you need to start preparing now.
Right.
Familiarize yourself with the bill.
Okay.
Start thinking about how you'll meet the requirements and engage with industry groups and experts to share best practices.
Don't wait until the last minute.
Right.
And one last reminder to our listeners.
Sure.
We're not offering legal advice here.
Right.
This is a complex piece of legislation, and if you need specific guidance, definitely reach out to your legal or compliance team.
Absolutely. We're just here to provide you with the information and insights to start those conversations.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into Hong Kong's new cybersecurity law. We've covered a lot of ground, but now I'm curious, what does this all mean for the bigger picture? Not just Hong Kong, but globally.
What's fascinating is how this law highlights a fundamental shift in our thinking about security in the digital age. It's no longer enough to just protect individual companies or systems. We need to think about safeguarding the interconnected networks that underpin entire societies.
Because if one piece fails, the whole system could come crashing down.
Precisely. It's that domino effect we talked about earlier. A cyber attack on a power plant in one country could disrupt supply chains and cause blackouts in another, or a breach at a major financial institution could trigger a global economic crisis. This law recognizes that interconnectedness and the need for a broader approach to security.
It really is a sobering thought.
Yeah.
So is this law in Hong Kong a sign of things to come? Are we going to see more countries adopting similar measures?
I think it's inevitable. As our reliance on digital infrastructure continues to grow, the stakes are simply too high to ignore. We're already seeing this trend towards CI cybersecurity legislation in many countries, and Hong Kong's new law is likely to accelerate that.
So what does this mean for businesses, governments, and individuals going forward?
For businesses, especially those operating in critical sectors, it means a significant increase in responsibility and accountability. They'll need to invest in robust cybersecurity measures, develop comprehensive response plans, and be prepared for greater scrutiny from regulators.
And for governments, what are the key challenges they'll face?
Governments will have to find that balance between increasing security without overstepping boundaries regarding individual rights and freedoms. They'll need clear and consistent regulatory frameworks, strong collaboration between different agencies and industries, and of course, they need to make sure their own systems are secure as well.
And what about us regular folks? How will this new wave of cybersecurity legislation affect our daily lives?
On a practical level, we might see increased costs for goods and services as companies pass on the expense of complying with these new regulations. We might also experience temporary disruptions to essential services if there is a major cyber attack. But maybe more importantly, this legislation forces us all to confront a new reality. Our personal security and well-being are increasingly intertwined with the security of the digital world.
It's a call to action for all of us to be more aware of cyber threats and take steps to protect ourselves online. So where do we go from here? What are our next steps as we consider all of this information?
This deep dive was just the starting point. We encourage you to delve deeper into the bill itself and consider what implications it may have for your organization or industry. Pay attention to the ongoing discussions and debates surrounding its implementation.
And remember, this is not just about complying with the law. It's about all of us working together to build a more resilient and secure future for everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and as always, stay curious.